What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the Tree of Life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
For thousands of years, the secrets of ancient Sumer have been locked away in clay tablets, messages written in a language no one could fully understand. But now, for the first time ever, artificial intelligence has cracked their code, and what it revealed is shaking the very foundation of what we thought we knew about humanity. Could these texts be hiding knowledge that was meant to remain secret? Did our ancestors know things we're only now beginning to uncover? And could this change everything we believe about human history and our place in the universe? But before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a single revelation as we uncover the shocking truths buried in the sands of time. Let's find out. The strange civilization. What if the story of human civilization didn't start the way we think it did? 6,000 years ago, in a land between two great rivers, something happened that still shakes historians today. In modern Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates flow, a sudden civilization rose almost overnight. They called themselves the Black-Headed Ones. We know them as the Sumerians. Now, here's the thing. This wasn't some slow climb from hunting and gathering. Other cultures needed thousands of years to develop writing, laws, and astronomy. But in Sumer, it all seemed to explode at once. Villages transformed into vast city-states, Eridu, Uruk, Ur, and, at the heart of it all, mud. But this wasn't just any mud. The Sumerians saw potential that no one else did. They baked it into bricks and built entire cities with it. They shaped it into vessels, tokens for trade. But the real breakthrough, they used it to create memory. They invented cuneiform, wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets. And that changed everything. For the first time, humans could record thoughts permanently. Not just grain counts or tax lists, though those mattered, but royal decrees, contracts, poetry, and entire stories. Stories that would outlive their creators by millennia. And get this, when they started writing numbers, they didn't mess around. They used a base 60 system, and the truth is, we still live with that legacy today. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. 360 degrees in a circle. That level of mathematical precision, it was baked into their mud tablets thousands of years ago. But here's where it gets strange. The more scholars dug through those tablets, the more unexpected stuff they found. Nestled between records of barley shipments and beer recipes were references to ritual medicine, odd astronomical notes, even whispers of knowledge that seemed way ahead of its time. Now, fast forward to today. Tens of thousands of those clay tablets are sitting in museums and storage rooms around the world. But reading them, that's been brutal. One tablet might have over 1,000 unique signs. Each sign can mean different things depending on context. It used to take scholars a lifetime just to get decent at reading this stuff. Only a tiny group of experts could even try. And that's where AI changes the game. In Munich, researchers started using machine learning to digitally piece together broken tablets. Think of it like solving the world's oldest and hardest jigsaw puzzle. At first, the AI could only match fragments, but it learned fast. Soon, it could recognize writing patterns, isolate texts, and even read across different scribes and styles spanning centuries. By 2023, teams at Tel Aviv and Ariel University had built an AI that could translate Akkadian, the language of many cuneiform tablets, into English almost instantly. Stuff that used to take years now took hours. As Big Think put it, it was like combining Google Translate with a time machine. And just as this tech was getting scary good, the archaeologists struck gold, figuratively. New digs revealed tablets in such pristine condition that they could serve as master texts to help verify the AI's translations. Up in northern Iraq, at a site called Kurd Khalistan, they uncovered a cache of tablets dating back to around 1800 BCE. But researchers suspect these were actually transcribed versions of even older originals. Around this same time, another site, Girsu, one of the earliest Sumerian cities, coughed up more than 200 untouched cuneiform tablets, along with 60 cylinder seals. The kicker? These finds were preserved in bitumen-lined containers, which protected them from moisture and damage. And because these tablets referenced even earlier events, many historians now think they hold knowledge from the dawn of Sumer itself. But the story wasn't slowing down. By 2025, powerful new tools from Würzburg University were breaking new ground once again. They could now recognize idioms, technical jargon, and subtle meanings that human translators had overlooked for decades. But what exactly were they uncovering? Turns out, those mysterious astronomical notes weren't just random stargazing. The tablets actually contained precise records of planetary movements, solstices, and even hints of Earth's precession, a slow wobble in the planet's rotation that modern scientists only fully grasped in recent history. So, were the Sumerians really tracking cosmic cycles that lasted tens of thousands of years? The data strongly suggests they were, but it didn't end with the stars. The discoveries kept coming. In the realm of medicine, the tablets spoke of antiseptics, wound care, and even pulse diagnostics. They recorded family health details in ways that hinted at an awareness of hereditary traits, something modern genetics wouldn't define until thousands of years later. And then things took an electrifying turn. Literally. Some tablets described copper and iron containers immersed in acidic liquids. The words they used? Current, spark, radiant glow. Sound familiar? That's almost a textbook description of the Baghdad Battery, an ancient artifact found thousands of years later. Could it be that the Sumerians were experimenting with electricity long before it was officially discovered? Whether it happened by accident or design, they were clearly documenting processes that align shockingly well with modern electrical science. Yet the biggest surprise wasn't just about early science. Some of the strangest and darkest passages spoke of stones that burned the earth and poisoned the land, buried deep to keep their danger contained. Today, we know of desert glass, fused quartz created by extreme heat, possibly from meteor strikes, or something else entirely. Could these ancient scorching stones be related? Some experts think so. Others whisper about lost technologies or weapons that seem far beyond their time. And that's exactly where myth starts to collide with mystery. The Anunnaki, you've probably heard that name before. In early Sumerian legend, they were divine judges and cosmic beings. But in modern fringe theories, made famous by Zecharia Sitchin, they become ancient astronauts. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki came from a distant world called Nibiru, some 400,000 years ago. Their purpose? To mine Earth's gold. And to achieve that, they supposedly engineered humans as a working species through genetic manipulation. Wild, right? Yet here's the twist. AI is now uncovering strange technical phrases buried within those same mythic verses. Mentions of energy vessels, divine codes, sealed chambers filled with breathable air. Words that sound just a bit too precise to dismiss as pure imagination. But hang tight. We'll circle back to that soon. Because those me once believed to mean divine boats or flying chariots are now showing details like airflow systems, sealed cabins, and protective shells. Could these be distorted memories of ancient machines? The deeper AI digs, the thinner that line between myth and technology becomes. Before we go any further, though, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe and like button. Seriously, take a second and run that up. Show some love before we jump ahead. The origin of the human race. But the story of Sumer isn't just about stars and flying chariots. It's about us. And their tablets don't whisper about human origins, they shout it. Texts like the Atrahasis and Eridu Genesis pull no punches. They say humanity was created not by chance, not by nature, but by design. So here's the setup. The way these tablets tell it, there was a full-on rebellion in the heavens. The lesser gods, called the Agigi, were sick of doing manual labor. And when they finally revolted, the higher gods, the Anunnaki, needed replacements fast. Their solution? Whip up a brand new being, one that could take orders and handle the hard work. And how'd they do it? According to the tablets, by crafting a human from clay and what they called divine essence. And they gave this first human a name, Adamu. Sound familiar? Yeah, you're not alone. The parallels to later religious texts are a little hard to miss. But that's not even the weirdest part. At first, these humans were apparently a mess. Sterile, not too bright, basically not ready for prime time. So what did they do? They tweaked them over and over again until they finally got it right. Humans who could reproduce and get to work. Now, here's where things start to sound a little less like myth and a lot more like a lab project. Thanks to AI, we're picking up phrases buried in these ancient lines like essence mixture, prototype yield, and reproductive capacity. And naturally, this is where ancient astronaut theorists start leaning in hard, because they point to modern genetic oddities like the sudden fusion of human chromosome 2 as potential leftovers from ancient tinkering. Did someone out there mess with us? Mainstream scientists say no, but the debate, oh, it's far from over. And speaking of ancient visitors, here comes one of the most controversial parts of the whole story. Nibiru. Yeah, Zecharia Sitchin's infamous theory. He claimed the Anunnaki came from a distant planet on a wild looping orbit, one that takes 3,600 years to circle the sun. According to him, they first showed up about 450,000 years ago, and every time Nibiru swung by Earth, it triggered waves of civilizational rise and fall. Now, whether you believe that or not, here's the thing. Sumerian tablets do record cataclysms, big ones, massive floods, droughts, climate disasters, and they often tie these events to strange celestial happenings. Red skies, reversed rivers, stars that predator the land. So, were they talking about Nibiru, or just natural disasters viewed through a cosmic lens? And this is where AI starts making things even messier, because it's showing that many of these old tablets don't just tell wild stories, they read like survival guides. But let's leave that aside for a second, because there's another part of the story that remains just as strange to this day. The Sumerian king list. Their king list, which is basically this ancient document where they recorded who ruled and for how long, doesn't exactly begin with guys sitting on thrones for 40 years and then retiring. No, the first king, Alulim, his reign supposedly lasted 28,800 years. The next one, Dumuzid, 36,000. Now fast forward through the list, and later kings ruled for more reasonable lengths, hundreds of years instead of thousands. But even that is not exactly normal. Mainstream historians, of course, say those numbers are just symbolic, a way to show divine power. You know, like, our king was so mighty, he basically ruled forever. But some researchers think something entirely different was happening. And that's where things start to spiral down the rabbit hole. Could these rulers have actually been hybrids? Part human, part something else? Specifically, the Anunnaki. Now, let's toss a bit of archaeology into the mix. There's this tomb, Queen Puabi's tomb, dated around 2600 BC. And when it was opened, what they found was pretty strange. They uncovered a skull that didn't really fit what you'd normally expect. No, it wasn't like those cranial modifications you see in certain ancient cultures, where people intentionally shaped their heads. This skull was naturally elongated, something that simply shouldn't happen. And nearby, skeletons measured over 7 feet tall, which is extremely rare for Sumerian populations. I mean, even by today's standards, that's huge. So, were these just random genetic anomalies? Or could they be actual physical evidence of something more mysterious? Now here's where the ancient writings take a seriously weird turn. The Sumerians were obsessed with keeping their bloodlines pure. Over and over, their texts mention the seed of Anu. And they weren't just being poetic. These people practiced dynastic marriages, performed strict rituals, and enforced laws to protect a specific bloodline. And they weren't the only ones doing it. You see this same theme across the ancient world. Egyptian pharaohs claimed they were descended from gods. Inca rulers said they came from the sun. Even Tibetan Dalai Lamas are believed to be reincarnations of divine beings. But the Sumerians, they might have been the first to write all of it down. And this is where it gets complicated. The Sumerian language is packed with words that shift meaning depending on the context, like the term me. It can mean a divine command. It can mean a cultural ideal. It can even mean a tangible object. That's caused some seriously wild interpretations over the years. Zechariah Sitchin, for instance, claimed some of these writings described powerful, energy-filled objects. One of his biggest assertions was that tablet VA243 was actually a star map. Except, not really. That one's been completely debunked. It turned out to be just a simple dedication, not some cosmic chart. But the Sumerians didn't just leave behind fascinating myths and clay tablets about gods and rulers. They also left warnings, very real ones. You might assume they were talking about one great flood or a single catastrophic event, but that's not the case. The Sumerians described cycles, repeating patterns, entire ages of prosperity that rose and then fell again and again. It's all encoded in their star records, and here's where things get truly eerie. Modern AI is now linking those ancient patterns with actual documented climate disasters. Think of the 4.2 kiloyear drought, total collapse of civilizations, the sudden fall of the Akkadian Empire, famines, mass migrations. We've got scientific proof these things happened, but the tablets tell the story in a whole different way. Red skies, a blackened sun, stars devouring the land, rivers literally flowing backward. For a long time, scholars just shrugged this off as poetry. You know, ancient folks trying to sound dramatic about natural disasters. But now, AI is flagging these passages as potential accounts of real celestial events. Which raises a huge question. Were the Sumerians witnessing something in the skies that we've long forgotten down here? And just when you think it can't get any stranger, the Sumerians had their own League of Gods. The League of Gods. And I'm not talking about the Anunnaki this time. That's just the surface stuff. Peel back the layers, and you discover a pantheon that could easily rival any modern fantasy universe. They had gods for storms, healing, the moon, scribes, even specific winds. And that's just scratching the surface of what we know. Let's start with the big boss, Enlil. This guy wasn't merely a wind god. He literally split heaven from earth. That's how his myth kicks off. And get this, Enlil was so sacred that not even the other gods dared look him in the face. He ruled from a massive temple called Ekur in Nippur, and basically ran everything: agriculture, kingship, even the laws of existence themselves. We're talking celestial executive-level authority here. Then there's Enki, the trickster, god of fresh water, wisdom, and creation. He's basically the cosmic engineer you'd want on your team. His story? He overthrew his own father, shaped the world, and supposedly gifted humans with intellect and magic. Think of him as the ancient world's genius inventor. And fun twist: his sister, Gatamdu, was the goddess of healing and fertility. Not a household name today, but back then she was invoked during childbirth and wellness rituals, a nurturing presence often overshadowed by flashier myths. Things get even spicier with Inanna, later known as Ishtar. This goddess ruled love, war, political power, and pure, unapologetic ambition. Her symbol was an 8-pointed star, and her myths were wild. One story has her descending into the underworld to claim her sister's domain. She ends up dead, hanging on a nail, and is only revived by trading her husband's life. Some scholars suggest this myth was an early way to explain the seasons: death and winter, rebirth and spring. But wait, there's more. Utu, also called Shamash, was the sun god, son of Nana and Ningal. He wasn't just about light, he brought justice and law, literally illuminating truth as he moved across the sky each day. And his sister, Nana, the moon goddess, was so revered that one of history's first known authors, Enheduanna, served as a high priestess in her cult. The first named author in recorded history was a woman writing hymns to a moon goddess. That's just incredible. And tucked away in the myths is Ninmah. Hardly anyone talks about her, but she was Enlil's scribe, a librarian of the gods, midwife to humanity's creation, and a healer. Think about that. A goddess who was basically the keeper of cosmic knowledge. Definitely deserves more credit. Now it gets even deeper. And the Sky Father was seen as the ultimate ancestor, sometimes represented as a celestial bull. His partner Kai, the Earth Mother, had a myth so bold it might have been whispered rather than shouted. Their union with their own child, Enlil, supposedly created all life on Earth. Some believe this wasn't just about fertility, but a cosmic metaphor for the interconnectedness of life itself. And then there's Anzu, a giant thunderbird who straight up stole the tablets of destiny from Enlil. These weren't just symbols. These were literal objects of divine power. The fight to retrieve them became the stuff of legend. Depending on where you heard it, either Ninurta or Marduk brought the bird down. But here's the thing. By the time the Babylonians rolled out their epic creation myth, the Enuma Elish, the Sumerian pantheon, had ballooned to more than 300 deities. And the deeper researchers dig into those ancient clay tablets, the more names they find. Dozens of gods barely known today, many waiting in museum archives, half translated, their stories incomplete. And here's a wild theory. Some scholars think there may have been local gods tied to specific natural phenomena. One god for a particular spring, another for reeds in a marsh, even for individual winds. Meaning every new fragment we find could introduce an entirely forgotten god. Now, before you think this is just some neat collection of stories, here's where it gets tricky. Unlocking Sumerian myth isn't about flipping through a complete book. It's more like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Most of what we know comes from clay tablets, many of them shattered or worn away by time. Scholars have to piece together a single story from fragments found in different places, sometimes written centuries apart. And even when they do, the language itself throws curveballs. Cuneiform writing is crazy complicated. A single syllable could be carved 25 different ways. Add in shifts between Sumerian, Akkadian, and Neo-Babylonian dialects, not to mention poetic language and layered metaphors, and every translation becomes a high-stakes game of interpretation. And you know what's even wilder? For ages, Western scholars dismissed many of these gods as unimportant, primitive, or just local oddities. Entire deities were overlooked or wrongly classified. Even the legendary story of Inanna's journey into the underworld wasn't completely understood until the 1900s. And it took decades for researchers to piece together the whole narrative. Were the Sumerians hidden scientists, witnesses to something beyond our world? Or are we simply distorting their reality through a modern lens? The further we explore, the stranger everything becomes. So what do you think those glowing gems and crackling rods actually were? Share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. And if you're into stories that make you question everything you thought you knew, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more coming.